afternoon, everybody. I'm glad you could join us for today's event. We are going to be talking about closing out the year in your Dynamics GP system. So that's going to be really nice tips for you from Ron Peterson. I'm guessing most of you have already worked with Ron before, but if for some reason you haven't, he's one of our senior ERP consultants here. He's been working with GP for definitely over 20 years, and he really knows his stuff. He knows exactly what to do for the year end and will help you through that. I have just a couple quick announcements for you. First of all, yes, we're recording. Yes, you'll get this recording, if not today, early tomorrow morning. But also we have a couple handouts that I will put in the chat if that works. Every once in a while, Teams glitches out on me. If for some reason I can't get it in the chat, I will email it to you directly in the next few minutes because that's something that we want you to be able to follow along with throughout the presentation. And in case you weren't already aware of all that Boyer does, we've done business applications for quite a while. That's kind of the GP side, but we are also now a solutions partner for modern work. So that's your whole Microsoft 365, the productivity suite, Office, Word, all that stuff. And Microsoft is celebrating their 50th year anniversary. So they had these nice little partner logos you could put up. We've actually been a partner for more than 30 years, but the biggest logo they had was 20. So at least 20 years. And of course, all of these solutions that we can help you with. Cloud ERP, if you're looking to move from GP to Business Central, we can help you on the CRM side as well, or Power Platform. Again, I mentioned that Microsoft 365. Or if you want to get all your licenses under one partner, Boyer can help you do that, which kind of streamlines your license management and helps you save some money that way. And Ron will talk a little bit about our GP support plans as well. And of course, the new shiny object for everyone is AI Copilot. We can help you there as well. With that, I'm going to hand the rest of the time on over to Ron.
Thank you very much, Katie. So for a high-level agenda, and we've kind of used this in the years past, and we should be able to get through everything fairly quickly here. I'm going to try to keep fairly high level. You'll have the detailed documents and the like, but most of you have gone through year end a number of times. And of course, if you do have questions, we're still here to help you. But since you do it once a year, it's good to get a little bit of an overview, right? So just some key year-end notes. If you're doing 1099s and the like, chances are you have more than 10 documents. They're really pushing for electronic filing. So do plan for that. GP doesn't do it for 1099s natively, but there's a variety of vendors that do, as it's kind of shown in the document here. And in terms of printing 1099s and all the different types, GP will now do that and be able to put the boxes in and everything, so you can kind of print to plain paper. You don't have to be purchasing those forms and trying to get all the alignment there. Okay. Katie had mentioned support. Of course, we provide support. Most of you have been on just sort of a standard plan. You contact us when you need something. We do have a variety of plans, and this is on our site, and contact us if you want to get more information, but we have a variety of plans to help support you further, particularly if you're larger, growing, have some various initiatives and things, or if you're one of the clients that are starting to move to BC and want some help optimizing things and the like, we can kind of support you in a variety of ways here also. Now, most of you have seen, there's lots of text here on this screen, but know that Microsoft is in the process of starting to sunset Dynamics GP. It actually goes out to, another 4 years or a little bit more in terms of security patches and the like. But I saw this on their site and just wanted to kind of point this out, that, end of life announcement. They're going to continue providing support to the best of their ability. We'll continue to do everything possible to assist, but the level of support that they might be able to offer us or you may not manage or come to the same standards you've come to expect as resources and updates for GP become. Please know that your needs are important to them, and they are here to help guide through this period of change with care and attention. To maintain stability, they go on to say, and to avoid disruptions, we encourage organizations to begin planning their migration to Dynamics 365 Business Central. As many of you know, I've got lots of history. I'm an old GP guy. Even before that, when it was Great Plains software and the like, a lot of very strong features there, but I've been impressed with what I've seen with Business Central. It is a nice migration to those that are on it. The things like even doing year-end closings are easier. There's a variety of stuff that's in it that's very, very nice. And if you are evaluating kind of moving to that cloud, that's that Business Central or BC is in the cloud. It's a hosted type system for you. We already had dozens of our GP clients do that migration. We've got a pretty streamlined packet or process to help you through that. I mean, it is implementing a new system, so we got to get the data over, train you, get it set up so that it's working really, really well for you. And Microsoft's interested too in getting more and more clients migrated. So they do have some funds available to assist with that evaluation and the implementation process, but you need to be on a little bit newer version, which I think most of the people are. I'm going to get started here, but here's a couple of contact slides or emails. If you're trying to kind of reach out to us, please take note of that. And most of you, I think, already have my email address. So with that, I'm going to stop presenting the PowerPoint so we can get in. Okay, close that down. And, this is basically the document, very similar to prior years, for our year-end closing procedures and our various checklists. We've got a number of chapters in here, just some updated type things. With respect to 1099s, W-2s, W-3s, the ACH type forms and stuff, no real changes coming from the IRS, so we don't have any real updates and things there. Also, with some of these overtime premiums and et cetera, as you can see on here, that there's no real changes with respect to that. A little bit with respect to fixed asset luxury auto depreciation, some other no real changes there. If you are doing some things with integrity data, which really manages the payroll side of things now, they provide the support for Microsoft and the like. There's links and you can kind of go out to their site, integrity data, for general AP I'm sorry, not AP, for general payroll type of support. The year-end update from Microsoft will cover that. But if you've got more advanced features, integrity data is supporting that. When I say advanced features, things like FTE manager, PTO manager, comprehensive leave, enhanced retirement plans. I'm kind of going down a list here. Some employee self-service options, things of that nature. So you might need to, if you're utilizing some of those, also get in some updates and files from integrity data. And again, just like in years past, really pushing from the IRS standpoint to do electronic filing. You can get some information kind of here in some of the hyperlinks. This 18.8 release, which is the release for this year, 18.8, it is comprehensive. So if you haven't done any updates during this year, the most current 18.8 release will cover all the features. Another really good resource is this year-end blog, and that will take you to a series of links and discussions about the various modules, what to do, what to update. I think on the call we have one person from Canada. If I were to click on this link, it comes to this particular page for the blog series. There's some Canadian specific things in here. So a hyperlink here that will you can use for that purposes. As I talk through, most of them are attendees are US based, so I'll be kind of focusing on that. But the general things within GP kind of apply both ways. Of course, if you're on a much older version of GP, there's no tax updates or anything on GP 2016, but I think most of you have upgraded since then. And then also this year, they have announced that GP officially is going to extend, product support and updates through to the end of the year 2029. So another 4 years out. And then security patches will be available for another, roughly 16 months beyond that. Do, of course, reach out to us if you need help kind of installing something or getting some of those updates. There's a chapter here on, support and the like. You can review that. Preparation, though, for your updates. One of the things that you'll have to have before you start updating, before you get to the year end, is creating new fiscal years going forward. The navigation for that is kind of listed here. I can kind of show you real quickly on a GP. So under administration and setup, I'll collapse system here. And under company, there's fiscal periods. This is something that right after our webinar, you can go and set up those fiscal periods for next year. We've already had some clients calling saying they were trying to post something, and it happened to relate to they were getting posting errors because they were trying to post something into 2026 already, and having errors because they didn't have that year open. I'm in a demo system. The default open year right now is 2027, but if you were in your system, let's presume it's 2025 now, you could come in here, simply put in 2026, first day of the year, last day of the year, if it's number of 12 periods, or whatever you might have, you do the calculate, it will fill out this table for you. You do have the option of updating each of the periods to give it your name, which can be probably even more helpful if you're on a fiscal year, not a calendar year. So you can be kind of, naming your periods better by month. But it's okay to open though, to set that up. If you want, you can go ahead and close them so somebody isn't accidentally posting off into the future. And you can kind of manage it as you're managing fiscal periods now. But keep in mind, get those fiscal periods set up. There has been questions in the past about setting up maybe a period 13 or 14 if you're getting audit adjustments and things like that. We don't really recommend setting up periods to just handle audit adjustments or any internal adjustments and things. it can throw things a little bit out of whack when running some types of utilities and things in GP. There are ways to uh, to isolate, things like audit adjustments. And if I were to show you here quickly, up under the setup, things that under company, uh, oh, where is it? Posting here under posting, um, source documents. So when you're posting a GL transaction, it defaults to a source document of GL. You've got all these different source documents for different types of transactions that post. You could set up just an audit one. Put in audit, description is auditor adjustments. If you needed to isolate those separately or found it helpful. So when you're in GP and you're doing a journal entry, right here, source document, it defaults to GGA for a journal entry. Well, you could come in if you set up an audit one, you could select that and just call audit and kind of go on, do the journal entry through smart lists or other reporting tools, inquiries and stuff. You could isolate those to see what those were. So better approach. Um, Posting options. This is important also uh, for you to know how the date is being selected when you are posting within GP. What I mean by that is if I come in here under administration and then down here again under posting, now this is an area you need to be very careful with, but you open it up, you select the area, let's say purchasing. And if I were to come in here under payable transaction entry, now I'm not going to change anything, but I'm looking right here in the center, posting date. Does it come from the batch or does it come from transactions? And the reason that this is kind of important is when you get towards, the very end of the month or your first few days in the new year, some transactions you might want to be making sure they're getting into 2025 back in December. Some are still going into January. Your users should know where that posting date is coming from. There's no right or wrong answer. Different companies want it, handle it different ways, but know whether you're set up to have it come from the batch ID as they create them, or whether that date is coming from the date of the transaction. If you guys have further questions about that, please let us know. But this will be for like a payable entry here, if we're doing a payment. So each one of them can have a different setting. If I come over to sales, come in here, receivables, sales entry, yeah, that's coming from the batch in this case also. So just another thing to be aware of and cognizant of as you're trying to get transactions in for the end of the year and for New Year's. Within the GL, this is important also. If after you've closed the general ledger for 2025, you are still able to post back into 2025. So you can post back to the first closed year. GP will handle that transaction appropriately. So it will look at it to say, hey, is this impacting a income statement type of account? If it is, I know I also need to close out that transaction because your year has already been closed. So it's treating it like a prior period adjustment. You make one simple entry, GP is going to make two. One to post the entry you made. The second one is to close out that P&L effect to your retained earnings or whatever account has been set up. And so everything's clean for your new year. Company database backups. Throughout the manual and the little checklist guides, there's lots of indicators to back up, back up, back up, as you're going through, each stage. Do you need to do as many as they're outlining? That's up to you. If you're starting off one morning or working one weekend and you're going through doing a variety of closes and a variety of modules, how far back would you have to go if things stopped kind of working and things? So you might decide, hey, my most recent backup an hour ago, I'm still okay with that, or whatever it is. So decide for yourself how many backups you need. I'll give a little more specific advice in the payroll area when we get to that. It's a little bit more detailed. There's also in this guide um, a an overview in the order you'd probably do things if you were a calendar year company. That's what we're going to be focusing on. But the next page will also show, hey, here's what you do if you're a fiscal year company and you're handling just your fiscal year close versus the calendar year end close. So there's just a little bit of a difference there. Do look and pay attention there. The first module that we will be closing in this case is going to be inventory. And let me come on down here. And, it basically, a lot of these closing procedures, primarily what they're doing is they're throughout the year, they're tracking activity. How what's the quantity sold or purchased for this item? What's the dollar amounts and things like that? So what the year end close process does is clears out some of those buckets, gets it ready for the new year. So you can kind of read through here in terms of getting more detail. Um, but what they're basically saying is, hey, try to get everything posted for the year, everything from sales order, purchase order, everything that's going to be impacting uh, your inventory for 2025. You can even go through a process of reconciling quantities to making sure that everything is kind of intact there. This process, depending on how big of an organization you are and the amount of transactions you've got in a year, can take a little while to run. So you need to kind of plan for that. They also talk about completing a physical inventory. If you're doing inventory and the like, I'm sure you've got some processes already in mind. They kind of talk about different ways you can do it within here. We're not going to belabor this point because I'm assuming you already have some processes in place. Please contact us if you're kind of questioning that. They also talk about going through and running a variety of reports for permanent records. I suggest, unless you have ownership in a paper company or something like that, rather than printing off tons and tons and tons of paper, you might run these reports. When you go to print them to the screen, kind of review them. You'll see how long they are, and then maybe you can print them off to a PDF and keep them that way to be able to review back. And they're suggesting doing again another backup after you've done a lot of these inventory counts and adjusted quantities and reconciles. They say, yeah, time to do another backup. And then you're ready to close the year. And it talks once again about the various things it's doing as you do that. It's relatively easy to do it, and it's under the routines area. We'll take a look at that screen here in a moment. And then there's several options in there, and this describes what each of those options are doing. I think it's a little bit simpler than it might look, but let me take a look down here. And if we go to inventory and the routines area, there's a year-end close. And, there's a lot of discussion, about these various options, but, I would suggest you review it and see what makes sense for your organization. And once you've decided and chose your options, you simply hit the process. Then it's going to go through and do those updates for you, of closing and updating those quantity type buckets. Let's see, come back here. Yeah, we set the options, click process. Then if you're done with that, you may wind up going back to your fiscal periods possibly and closing those 2025, inventory. So other things aren't being updated against it, that you aren't aware of. So you can kind of close it down. If you do need to update something, you can always uncheck that box, do the posting, and then reclose again, stopping further updates. That is kind of it on the inventory side. There's a lot of work that you wind up doing, particularly if you've got inventory and you're doing, inventory counts and adjusting quantities and things like that. But the actual closing of it is that kind of one screen, and that goes by pretty quickly. I want to keep moving on here. Receivables would be the next one to kind of do. Um, and again, it talks about updating some of those buckets for customers and, activity, summary buckets and the like. It's gotten a little bit better, over the years. If you're in sales or in purchasing, same type of thing. It tries to say, get all your 2025 activity in, preferably before you start posting 2026. That sometimes can get difficult. You might do 2026 transactions, enter them into a batch. They're suggesting, maybe you don't even post that batch yet. Complete your 2025 ones, close the year, then go back and post your 2026 transactions. In the inquiry screen, let's see, which one was I looking at? Oh, yearly summary. If you had a customer and you were looking at their activity, you can select kind of the year and things, but they now have, and have for several years now, under the summary view, say, no, show it to me for the calendar year or amounts since the last close. So these two amounts can be different if indeed you're starting to post some 2026 transactions before you've closed the year. It'll only close and it'll push the 2025 data into those buckets. But if you're trying to keep this as clean as possible, they try to say, try to complete all the 2025 stuff first. See back over here. So they're again saying make sure you got your fiscal periods set up. They talk about the differences between a calendar and fiscal year close and what GP does. The procedure: post all your transactions, print your customer statements, call for another backup, close the year. It's just kind of doing that same routines again. Year-end close. We can take a quick look. So you're in the sales area for AR. You're coming down, kind of doing your statements and the like, and then you come down to year-end close, and it's just a simple screen like this. If you're a calendar year, you leave all. This will tell you when you've done it last. In your system, you would likely have dates there, and you're simply clicking the process button. Click, wait, be patient. Don't try to double click on it. You're going to do multiple closes. So, so you're going to close that. Let's see here up here. Whoop, then you can go back and close that, module so other things aren't posting in. And there's a variety of closing tips and the like here also. So kind of very similar, just make sure you get everything posted, and then statements and the like, and you're able to then close the module. Payables, um, very, very similar. We've got various buckets that it's GP's maintaining. When you do the closing, it's going to update those. They say, ideally, and many companies do not, quite frankly, but ideally, if you've got 2025 that hasn't been quite closed yet, and you've got 2026 transactions, ideally, they say, put them in a batch, enter them, go ahead, put them into a batch, print off some stuff maybe, try to hold off posting that batch until 2025 is closed. Again, that's ideally, many do not, because you can still, on some of those inquiry screens, get to some of the pure 2025 data. It's really not impacting, if you're not able to do that, it's really not impacting the data that's in and posted. It's just those quantity buckets that it's trying to accumulate per customer, or per vendor, of what that activity was for 2025. It discusses the difference between calendar and fiscal year close, the process for doing it. Again, post all the transactions, print some of these reports, especially, when you get to these age trial balances and stuff. Again, print them to a file, print them to a PDF, and save it that way, because some of these reports can get very, very long. Now, if you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, I'm willing to go and have a 35-page report or something like that, yeah, then I understand. But if it's 350 pages or something, you may want to, again, just take it to a PDF and have it available for reference. Again, they talk about paper copy. Go to a PDF. We don't have to worry about installing a payroll year-end update to get any 1099 form changes. If you were had done updates and stuff, throughout the years, you don't need that for this year. The form is going to be the same and will be supported. So you don't have to worry about step 4 on here. Making a backup, validating some of your 1099 information. So there's a variety of things it discusses here. To summarize it for you, back here under the purchasing side for 1099s, we've got the print 1099 window, and you have to be sure you're using what year you're doing it for. If you're going to be doing 1099s, what kind of 1099 are you doing? And then what is the form type? You're probably going to want one wide with a box. That way you're printing to plain paper, but it's creating all the boxes and the like for you. And then you can kind of, if you've got that set up and you're wondering how, what the data is like and wanting to start editing, a simple way to do this is possibly to kind of get to whichever one you want, just so this goes a little bit faster. I'm going to select a small range of vendors here. You can print a little edit list by, instead of printing the forms, going to just print here. This will print an edit list telling you, here's all the people that are going to get, I said just a small range, are going to get 1099s. Here's the amount that's going to go be printed for them. If you're looking through it and you're saying, yeah, I'm not sure about this, you can start doing, inquiries into smart lists and, other transactions to see what might be up or off. If you think you're missing a vendor, there's a couple of very nice tools within GP to help edit 1099s. And I'll just close this. I'll come back to it. One is here. update 1099 information. This is particularly helpful that if you have a new vendor came in this year and it got set up, but they didn't get marked as a 1099 vendor. And you get to the end of the year and you're looking saying, hey, I'm missing this one. Where are they? And you look through and say, oh, okay, all these transactions have already been posted. I can switch them to a 1099 vendor now, but that doesn't do anything for their past transactions that have already been posted. You can use this screen. You can select who that vendor is. You can then come up here and say, I want to update the vendor and the 1099 transactions. You can go from, you can zero this down, but if they didn't have anything, you can say, you know, any tax type, any box number for a single vendor, and you could put them in here. And you could say, no, they're going to become a non-employee compensation. And yeah, this is the box I want. Go ahead and you process that. That vendor gets changed to a 1099 vendor along with all their 1099 transactions. So there's a variety of things you can do here. Obviously, if someone got set up instead as a miscellaneous and you want them to be non-employee NEC instead, you could select that vendor and do it, or all your vendors, etc. So you can make changes here. If going the other way also, they were set up as a 1099 vendor, but they really shouldn't have been. You can kind of do it from a 1099 to, not being one. If you find that there's some data that was in there that's a little off, maybe they sent you a bill and half that bill was not 1099able. Over in here, there's also the edit 1099 transaction information. You could pull up a vendor. It'll show all the transactions in here. You can actually edit the 1099 amount of that transaction. You can't make that greater than what the invoice was for, but often times you might be doing this as something a little bit less. Also, if halfway through the year or after one or two transactions were posted, you noticed, oh, they should have been a 1099 vendor but weren't, and they changed it, right shortly after you've done a couple of transactions. So you're missing a couple of invoices. If you come through and do it here, you might be able to see and kind of add some of that um, uh, transactions in. So you might do all debit type transactions, redisplay, see that there's a couple here that didn't get picked up. You'll be able to update those also. So nice little utilities there to help update 1099 information. Printing of statements it talks about. We talked a little bit about that. Electronic filing with the IRS. A couple of vendors you can kind of look at and potentially use. You may already have your own. And then once you get all that ready, you're ready to go to the year-end close. And, as simple as kind of coming in here, are you calendar year, then you could do all. If you're a fiscal, etc. So choose the appropriate option. This is telling you the last time it was run, and then one click on the close year button. If it's printing or creating a report, be sure to save that. Then you can go back, and close the fiscal periods also. And let's see here, what else? Oh, a little bit different for fiscal year. You can kind of look at those, documents that in. So the next thing we've got is for fixed assets. Let's see here if we come in. So they're basically suggesting to go into the cards, look at the fixed assets, or that the closing process is going to update. Oops, close that. The closing process will update this depreciated to date fields, and it just talks about the various fields in here that will get updated um, through the year end close. Again, setting up for the new year to be able to accumulate new transactions. So complete all your, they're suggesting to be sure that you've completed your payables type closing, even to make sure everything that needs to be capitalized has been accounted for. Then enter in any additional fixed asset type of transactions you need. Come in and look at the or do the posting for the GL posting from fixed assets. We come in here and oops, down here, GL posting. GL posting, they're saying, put in what that end of year posting date, 12/31/27. They're saying go from make sure you got everything for the year, come in here, down to here, insert it, click process. It's going to see if everything's been updated. In my case, there's nothing still hanging out there. But once you do, there'll be a continue button to go ahead and continue posting from the fixed assets over to the general ledger, those transactions. So that's highlighted and described in here real well. Your various year-end reports that it kind of outlines here, printed or PDF. Ensure that your assets calendar is built correctly. There's a verify button, takes you through the steps here. Similarly for quarters, it's down here in your, delete. In your setup area down here, financial, fixed assets, you got the calendar, you've got the quarters. They're just saying, hey, make sure all of your quarters are looking appropriate. That, it's built correctly. You've got, applicable dates through there. So that's where they're talking about there. Start, end, and mid dates, all used for calculating depreciation. Take a backup and perform the year-end close. Year-end close, and then it walks you through the steps in here. And again, under the routines for fixed assets, the year-end close screen. Oops. See here. Assets. You'd close each of your books that you're going to do and hit the continue. Last one before payroll is our general ledger. And this is the one area that sometimes people will screw up. It's probably the most common area. And I'll point that out specifically, how to avoid that in just a couple of minutes here. So complete posting of all your transactions for all the other modules. If you've got an audit that's not going to happen for another month and a half, 2 months, something, it's okay to close that general ledger for 2025. And if the auditors come back and then have some audit adjustments, you can post back to one closed period to get those transactions in. Sometimes I think it makes things a little bit cleaner that soon as you feel you're done with 2025, get the GL closed. It talks about different, process and procedures and saying, hey, make sure these other modules are closed. final adjustments, it has some suggestions and things. You make entries. Okay, I'm sorry here. Let's see. Print and verify posting type. Okay, this area here is probably one of the most important pieces in terms of avoiding errors. And it's validating posting types within GP. And here's what they're talking about. On GL accounts, this is the account screen. I'll just go to the first one. Yeah, a cash operating account. There is a posting type selection here. This is what controls how the GL account is going to be closed out at the end of the year. If it's a balance sheet type of account, the balance for that account that's at the end of, we'll assume the calendar year again, at the end of 12/31 is going to still be there at the start of 1/1 um, uh, 2026, right? This is the balance sheet account. What GP will do, if it's a profit and loss account, it will close out that year-end balance to the retained earnings type of account that you're identifying. And the balance at the beginning of the year will be zero for that account. So just like as I've been in here, if I were to stop and or close this this field will have been set incorrectly. So it's an easy thing to do to get things out of sync. What we, um, the guide does is talks about a way in here of printing off an edit list of some sort or something. What I'm talking about right now is this tip or trick is you can use a smart list to kind of verify some of this information. And let me show you what I mean if you haven't done it in the past or haven't done it for a year or so. You come in under financial, go down to accounts. One way of doing it is you come in under your list of accounts, make sure that your accounts aren't, if you're showing the first 1,000, that you're only not that you're not showing just 1,000, that you're showing all of them. You come under search and make that 1,000 big enough so you can see all of the accounts. It's showing 519 of the first 1,000. So here's all of my accounts. The posting type. So it's sorting by number here. Posting type, balance sheet. One way is scrolling down. And all these are balance sheet, balance sheet. Oh, looking. Now I'm kind of doing this quickly. I may have made an error, but we'll see. Oh, it changed over to profit and loss right here at that 4,000 type level. All the rest of these should be profit and loss. And for scrolling, you can kind of scroll through it. Ooh, we do see some balance sheet ones in here, but the category number is 0. That means this is really kind of a variable allocation, or it could be a unit account. So it's okay to have those showing like that. But up under here, I also had created things like, oh, were the wrong so if you have a very, very large chart of accounts, you're going to want to come in here and create a little smart list to show you that, um, you know, if anything is wrong. So what I did is under the search, and I said, where the main accounts segment is greater than 39999. So all my balance sheet accounts are that or less. Income statement accounts are greater than that. But I said, but the posting type is equal to balance sheet. Well, I wouldn't want that. So this is an exception report. I generally shouldn't have anything coming through here. I see a bunch of zeros, but say I see a bunch of accounts, but these are all zeros, meaning that they are um, the allocation accounts or the unit type of accounts. Now, you have to be somewhat careful with some of these too. For example, here on a unit account, do I want to clear this balance or not? There's not a good way to see. Do I have another of adding this field into a smart list? They just didn't provide for it. But if you have a lot of unit accounts, you want to make sure that all your unit accounts are showing the appropriate thing. So whether you want their balance closed or not. If you have a lot, you might want to talk to us a little bit. We might be able to come up with well, we could come up with a little SQL script to make sure that they're all going one way or the other, or creating maybe a better listing for you so you can see what's going to happen with your unit accounts there and whether they're going to close out or roll over. So the number one thing is making sure you got your posting types right. Making sure you've closed everything into the last period. They recommend running some check links just to make sure, this is a process that could take a while. But again, a back end process that Microsoft has developed to make sure everything kind of looks right between summary and detailed type records. And it might update a few things, and then you might have to do a trial balance afterwards, and that still looks correctly. But they give you the path to do that. Um, Double check your general ledger settings. Let's talk about that because it is important. Under the GL and settings here, and set up finance. Oh, yeah, fixed assets. Under the GL, you want to make sure you're maintaining account and transaction history. Here's allow posting to history. We talked about after it's closed, whether you want to allow that or not temporarily. This would be your retained earnings type of account that would come through, that be used when you close out the year. So you're kind of double checking that information. They're suggesting printing a detailed trial balance. Again, you could do that if you're doing it for the whole year. You might want that to a PDF. Print your financial statements that you want so far. Validate you've got fiscal periods. And then you're ready to do the year-end closing. And see here. Yeah. Okay, so let's go take a look at that year-end closing. And under financial, year-end close. And again, it's confirming your retained earnings type of account that you want. You want to remove any unused segment numbers? Probably not. Maintain inactive accounts. If you've got some inactive and stuff, zero balance or whatnot, generally you'll probably be maintaining those inactive accounts, maybe all of them even. It's just showing you when it was closed last, but it's just simply close year on that button. And that will close your GL. After you do that, you may want to come back then and under your fiscal periods, close that. Fiscal periods, hey, you've closed the year, then come back and maybe close down the module so people aren't posting to that either. So that would get you through. They have some other little tips and stuff, some little questions, etc. So a variety of stuff there. That kind of would complete your your closing of most of the GL modules other than payroll. I'm gonna, some can drop off if you wish, at this point. Um, let's see, we had anything going on in the chat. I'll look at that and then I'll talk quickly about payroll. So Katie's saying that Teams isn't letting you upload those handouts. So she will be emailing them to you, a copy of this, both this user guide and the payroll addendum, which is what I'm going to start going through now, particularly if you're not using payroll. You certainly can start dropping off. So here's kind of where I was kind of indicating under the chat. That's where uh, Katie was kind of mentioning that. Again, here's my email address, and we really appreciate your time. For those payroll folks, let's take a look here at the addendum. And this is pretty straightforward now for this year also, or at least nothing really new at this point. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Um, so there really haven't been any IRS changes for, as we've talked about, 1099s, but a lot of the payroll W-2, W-3, W-4, ACA, et cetera, forms. No updates in terms of code that needs to be changed in GP for the Payroll Secure Act or W-2 overtime premiums and the like. Just a little bit with, we mentioned this before, luxury depreciation. I did, yes, okay. Um, I don't think they've gotten that first update for the tax update yet. I was just checking earlier this morning. There were some updates throughout the year in terms of tax updates, but it's the tax table update you're not going to apply until after you've done your last payroll for 2025, because those would be the tax tables that are going to apply going forward. Check the, oh, and this is a really good link, this blog series with a lot of great information in it. Let me see if I can see where that one is. Okay, here, pull this over. This blog series, they have lots of good links, updates. They talk about closing various modules, but there's stuff in here about using GP to like overtime tracking considerations for the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, stuff about Canadian payroll. There's links in here for Payroll Secure Acts considerations, ACA, etc. Links for closing uh, payroll and like so. Really good link for you here, along with some notes. So then, um, under the payroll year-end close checklist, there are two of them. One, if you're able to print all of your checks before for the year before, oh, didn't update that date there. Um, Before you start doing 2026, the other would be um, the alternate checklist. So they're very similar. This is the checklist of the steps you will follow. Under here, if you, and you can see those are just the checklists. We have some more information, but if you want detail behind each one of these steps, you would go to this year-end closing procedures, and that takes you to a link here in your browser. Year-end closing procedures for payroll, and it kind of has that same type of checklist along with detailed steps for each of those uh, steps that you would go to. The important one of the things that Microsoft has said, based upon no IRS form changes and the like, you would be able to, if you've done an update like to your last year and you're on 18.7, you might even be able to do a closing now and just update your tax table, your payroll tax table. I would recommend going ahead and still doing the year-end update, because if you've got some further updates in 2026 that you do need to download the code update, it's going to, and you're back on 2020 you're back on 18.7, you're going to have to load 18.8 before you can load 18.9 anyway. So those people on payroll do your year-end update regardless. And the big important thing is um, to complete your, I mean, let me back up. You could download and run the year-end update now for the code because there's not a big change, and then wait until you've completed your 2025 payroll before you load the payroll tax update, the tax tables, because that will apply to your 2026 payroll. So we've got all, they've done a very good job of detailing all the steps. I'm not going to read them all to you. It tells you, and I would follow the backups here a little bit more, because if something kind of slips up and breaks, it's good to be able to get back to that point. So they're telling you, go ahead and do a backup, label it pre-year end update, apply, download and apply that update. We've got lots of links. They've got links in here for getting it. Create the year end file. Creating this year end file basically is taking the data for 2025 and getting it. It's not in a file, it's getting it in tables within GP that isolate it there so that you can start doing your 2026 payroll, and then you can start doing your W-2s and all that other stuff. And it's pulling from the data that you do when you do step 6, creating this year end file. Make another backup after you create that year end file, label it. You've got links here for verifying your W-2s, etc., validating the information, printing your various forms. Again, all the steps that are outlined here, creating that electronic file. GP will do this one. If you've got HR archiving, maybe any inactive employees to keep your HR numbers down, that's an optional type step for you. Setting up your fiscal years, closing the payroll series. You can see the steps there, and installing the payroll tax update. This is that tax table thing that you would be doing. It gives you that specific steps. Looking at that real quickly here, and going just a little long, but there's a lot we go through. Oops, and if we go to GP tools setup system, we've got the payroll tax. So tools setup system, payroll tax. This is where you come to kind of do and validate code, and do some of those updates. Oops. And but whoops, which one is it here? Here it is. They're taking you through all the steps in here. Lots of very good links, and you will be getting both this payroll addendum and the um, oops, this payroll addendum and the year-end GP, year-end user, the main one, updated or sent to you. There's links in here about submitting your electronic files, etc. Lots of frequently asked questions, and you'll see a lot of this in that blog I had outlined also. I don't know if there's any specific questions we have, but that's kind of the payroll without going through every one of the various screens. But there's lots and lots of good information. Microsoft's done a pretty good job of documenting a lot of the stuff too, and we've provided those links for you. Okay. Got links for our support, and Utilize that if you have further questions. Let me see if we can see anything in here. Uh, yeah, I don't see any open questions in the chat. So I really would thank you for your time and have a have a great holiday season coming up here and a happy new year to you also. Bye.